Now, I chose to play a little country for just country.
Yeah, come on.
I don't know. I just figured.
What do you mean you just figured?
I don't know. It looked like a guy who would be a country singer.
Come on. You're kidding me.
I have no idea who this guy is.
Are you serious?
No idea.
So you're telling me you had no clue who this was. You
You
wanted
know
to
who it
go
is?
with country. Zach Brown Band.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
Wow. And grab my guitar and play.
Well, I know Durso's a big country guy, so I figured I'd bring a little country music to this show for you guys. And Durso, now I'm wondering if he's doing this interview with boots on and a hat. Kevin Durso, Flyers Insider, 97.3, ESPN.com. Is that the getup you're wearing today?
It is not the getup I'm wearing today. I'm very relaxed and chilling out, just trying to enjoy this last little bit of time before a big day tomorrow.
Yeah, Durso's getting married tomorrow. Now, is this going to be a cowboy boot, cowboy hat wedding?
It's not going to be in the immediate. That was part of the plan for the reception.
Wow!
Whoa!
This is breaking news.
Is it at the Wells Fargo Center? On the ice?
It's not at the Wells
No.
Fargo Center either.
So there is plans for the boots and the hat at the reception.
There are plans for the boots and the hat at the reception, yes.
Wow, this is unbelievable. Now, we talked about this before. Broads is over here just he's in sixes and sevens.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
This
This
is
is
the best.
great.
Now, we had talked about how the hockey reporters always go suit, right? Are you going to be more dressed for
Yeah.
your wedding or a hockey game?
Probably more for the wedding than the hockey game, but you know, it was funny. One of the jokes was I should wear the getup for tomorrow to a game sometimes I'm like, that's going a little too far.
All good fun. Kevin Durso's getting married. Congratulations to him and his bride-to-be. How long have you guys been dating?
A little over 5 years.
Wow. So what's the backstory? College together? You meet someplace special? Like, is there some fun story?
A little bit, actually, yeah, because the funny part is we went to the same college. She's a year younger than I am, so we were in different levels at that point in time. We graduated 1 year apart, and we actually didn't even meet each other on the college campus at all. For 3 years, we were at the same school, and we never met each other.
Huh.
We met at a mutual friend. A mutual friend was playing music at a local train station, and we happened to meet through mutual friends, and that was the start of everything.
Now, did she introduce you to the cowboy boots, or was it vice versa?
It was a little bit of a mutual thing. We both already had it in our history, so to speak. So we just happened. That was one of the commonalities we found early on that made it really easy to get along, and that was kind of the start of everything.
Is she a Flyers fan?
She is to an extent, and I say to an extent because of the fact that it takes a special person to put up with me and all that I have to do around the game. So that's again, the hockey guys are a different breed. So to do this all year just about and put up with it, it takes a special breed. So sometimes it's not her favorite thing in the world, but she appreciates it nonetheless.
Now, if she was a Rangers fan, a Devils fan, would there be a wedding tomorrow?
Oh, come on.
What? I think that's a serious question.
I don't know that I've seen. Let's this way. One of my groomsmen, and Broads, I think you're going to hate me for this, but one of my groomsmen is a Bruins fan. So we learn to tolerate certain things around us for the friendship of it. But
I won't hate
doesn't
you
mean
for
we
that.
don't rib on each other a lot.
Nah, this is coming from
It
Broads.
doesn't mean.
This is coming from Broads,
Yeah.
who says he cheers for Sidney Crosby to win the Stanley Cup.
You're damn right I do.
Broads, I thought that was going a little bit too far. I mean, I certainly am. I'll be among the first people to recognize Sidney Crosby as one of the best in the game, no question about it. I think he's the best player in the world at the moment. But nonetheless, it doesn't mean I'm sitting there saying I want to see him win another cup all the time.
Well, here's the thing. They've won so many at this point, and the Flyers are so far behind that, okay, so he gets his fourth. You're going to rub it in my face the same amount as you would if he had three.
Yeah, that's probably true for sure.
Kevin Durso, at Kevin_Durso. He's getting married, so congratulations again. I like these jerseys, Mr. Durso, Mrs. Durso, and they went with the number 20. So that is the year. Kevin Durso here with us. By the way, yesterday we did our favorite NHL coaches on the MGPT Top 5 at 5. You went with Alain Vigneault, Rod Brindamore, Barry Trotz, Peter Laviolette, and number 1, Ken Hitchcock. That's a pretty good list.
Yeah, and the thing is that I had an association with each one of these coaches in some way. Alain Vigneault at 5, I was kind of surprised I even put him on the list, to be honest with you, because I remember from before he became a Flyers head coach, it was, I think we base a lot of the coach's success on the team's success. So it was always the guy who got close to the Stanley Cup, never won it, and then had these really horrible endings with the teams he was with before he was fired. And he comes in, and it was a breath of fresh air for not only the team, but to be working around a guy who he has such a personality. So it was so much fun. I mean, for me going to press conferences all year with this, the whole martini bit he did where he would sit there and say, I'm not answering that question. I'll have a martini and I'll get back to you on it. It cracks you up every time. Rod Brindamore at 4, he's such a motivator, and it doesn't really even have anything to do with the Flyer tie that he was a former Flyer. It just is. There's videos that Carolina posts online of him doing a locker room speech or anything like that. He is such a motivator. I love the way he handles a team. He's a great head coach. I hope he wins a cup as a coach someday. Barry Trotz at 3 is a guy who I just always had a lot of respect for, and having done a couple, having gone through a playoff series when the Flyers played the Capitals, going to a couple of his press conferences too. He's such a good person with the media too, and he gives really good detailed answers. Always loved being around him. Peter Laviolette, what can you say about him other than the fiery side of him? It just comes out and you love it. He commands the room when he's in it, especially when you're part of the media. So he commands the room, and always loved his fiery side. Always loved all the little metaphors he had for everything, all the little things he would say, playing with some jam and all that type of stuff. And for me, Ken Hitchcock was number 1 because, first of all, this is a Hall of Fame coach someday. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame at some point with the resume he has. Growing up, I don't know if I ever told you guys this on the air anyway, but my favorite hockey player growing up was not actually a Flyer. It was Mike Modano of the Dallas Stars, and that was who Ken Hitchcock coached in the 90s. And when Ken Hitchcock became the head coach of the Flyers and was still head coach over that year, the full season lockout, he actually did a clinic locally at one of the skate zones, and I probably was about 12 years old at the time, and 12, 13 years old, and I participated in the clinic. So I'll send it to you guys. I have a picture of myself with Ken Hitchcock standing on the ice. So that was, a personal connection for me. And then I threw a couple honorable mentions on the list as well, that many of which you guys mentioned: John Tortorella, Pat Quinn, Herb Brooks, John Cooper, and I also threw John Stevens in there too, because I always liked John Stevens as well.
Yeah, absolutely. John Stevens is a good pull, local guy. But Mike Modano, I think everybody who's like a U.S. player at some point really fell in love with Mike Modano. That makes a lot of sense. The one guy, though, not on your list, not a big Tocchet guy, huh?
Not as much as a coach, and it has nothing to do with his success or anything like that. I just never found him to be the same kind of guy as a coach that he was as a player. Love him as a player. It's the, he's not that same kind of guy. I think he reminds me a lot of the way Craig Berube has evolved as a coach too, where you're not that fight inside kind of guy, and you're not that physical toughness kind of guy. You understand how to manage your players a little bit better, and you get the idea of what a coach needs to do to be that guide. And obviously Craig Berube figured it out and helped lead a team to a Stanley Cup. So it's all of that type of stuff. And that's why I didn't put him on a list of coaches. It's nothing personal on his part. I loved him as a player, and I love seeing old clips from when he was back in his beginning of his career when he was with the Flyers. But and that's basically where my mind was at with him.
All right, Kevin Durso's with us. Let's get from you, where is hockey currently? Because it sounded like they were kind of the first one that made an announcement, and they were kind of quiet, and then they made their phase 2, then they went to phase 3. Where are they currently, and is there any potential hiccups for them?
Currently, I would say they're kind of playing a bit of a waiting game, and it's not necessarily that they're waiting for anything. It's just that we're waiting for the information to come out more or less about where they're going to play. That's really the next big step, and it's down to 5 cities. I heard you guys mentioning them. It's Vancouver being out drops it to 5 now, so you're down to the 2 Canadian cities, Toronto and Edmonton, and then the 3 U.S. cities, Vegas, L.A., and Chicago. And it's really imperative that they come up with a decision quickly. I have already heard that that's not coming today, so it could be over the weekend, could be Monday. We're waiting to find out, and I think a lot of players are, because once they can actually lay out the cities, it gives people an idea of what life is going to be like when they have to play in a hub city. Edmonton did a really nice job laying out their proposal, because they really pitched it the way that I had talked to Josh on Monday about it, the way that I thought Vancouver could do it, which is, if Vancouver hosted an Olympics recently, you kind of create this Olympic Village style type of hub where all of your athletes are within the same area. Everything that they can do is within this area, and it helps to isolate them from the rest of the public. And Edmonton laid out a whole plan that included that included a hotel that was across the street from where the arena was, where they would be playing games, so it kept them in close proximity to that. It detailed everything with what they were allowed to do, and that's what the players need to see to feel comfortable. The other key part of this equation is waiting for the next update. You guys talked about the NBA's update on positive tests. The NHL is going to probably follow with one relatively soon. I don't know if it's coming today or over the weekend, but if it's in line with the weekly updates they said we were supposed to get, that came out roughly last Friday, last Saturday, when they had a few positive tests pop up with Tampa Bay Lightning, with players training in Arizona, all of that, then we should be getting another update that should include, A, the number of new positive tests they found, and B, maybe an update on the players that previously tested positive, the 11, and how many have either made a recovery or are progressing well or whatever it is. And those two figures are going to certainly help to dictate where this goes.
How does a Canadian city change the optimism? Is that a big difference if you compare it to, say, the U.S., which is definitely having numbers go up and up and up?
I think so, and I'll throw this in. I was a little bit surprised that Vancouver so quickly dropped out of the running. It felt like Canada had this upper hand on everything, especially once they got clearance to allow the athletes to come back, that you figured at least one Canadian city is getting picked. I have no doubt in my mind about that, and I'd say Edmonton is probably the front runner given the detailed plan they put out and the fact that they're on board with all of the testing that's going to need to be done to make sure that this stays safe the way it needs to be. The question now that comes into play is now that Vancouver's out, it's basically either, it could be Toronto or bust to make it both Canadian cities, or do you go with the one U.S. city and a Canadian city, and which U.S. city do you pick and hope that it doesn't turn into a problem area? Vegas, we talked about the spike in numbers in Nevada. California is probably not too far behind in that either, or right along with them. And then Chicago's just kind of lurking in the middle of this, with not really too much detail on anything with spike in numbers or what kind of plan they have either. We haven't really heard much from Chicago or LA at all, other than they're still in the running. Vegas kind of detailed their plan a little bit, but now you're concerned about the numbers. So that might be a hiccup for them personally. But do you choose one of these other U.S. cities and try to keep the balance, or do you just go to Canada? I think that maybe trying to go to Canada would be better, because I think that there's a lot less risk, and I think players can feel a lot safer, especially for a lot of them who did manage to go home and have so far stayed home. That would be a big influence to me on where you should try to play down the road.
Yeah, and Kevn Durso is with us, who covers the Flyers in the NHL here. With they don't have a hard and fast date, right? Do they have any date? We heard July 31st or maybe that first week of August, but not hearing a date specifically sounds as if they're still trying to figure out. They don't even know where they're playing, I guess. But is there a target date in your that you know of that they might have them to start figuring out where and when they're going to start getting back out there?
Yeah, the target for Phase 3 remains July 10th, which is the full training camps. And even if something delays that process for any reason, whether it's the decision on the hub cities, the ability for players to go back to wherever they would be training, or just something overall like spikes in the numbers or anything like that, they are willing to potentially move that date slightly, but they're not talking about a significant delay. They're talking about a matter of a couple of days or so. So it would still not really disrupt the timeline that they want to have for getting back to Phase 4. And the reported date that I heard was July 30th to play games. Basically what would happen is Phase 3 would be a 2-week period in the team's training facility, and then that last week leading up to gameplay, the teams would then travel to the hub cities. They would get one exhibition game. That means nothing in the standings, means nothing to the playoff structure at all, just gets them a game. And that would happen somewhere over the course of the week of July 23rd and 24th. And then July 30th, it would be go time. That's the report that I've heard. That's obviously all up in the air depending on what they can get done in the next couple of weeks, because they need to figure out a lot of things, not just with the hub cities, but with the CBA as well, and try to figure out how they're going to extend contracts, extend player rights, and do things with the escrow and all of the things with the money aspects of it that would have normally been expired in a matter of days. Usually July 1st is the new league year, and that totally changes everything when you're still trying to finish out the previous season. So they have to work out a lot of these details. And the goal seems to be that they're working on all of those things at the same time and just trying to get it in time for Phase 3's target start date, all while monitoring the numbers as well.
All right. Now, Kevin, you had written earlier this week on the website, 973ESPN.com, that this was a crucial week ahead. Here we are now at the end of the week, getting ready for the next week to kind of get going. 3 members at Tampa Bay, they had to shut down that. You had Austin Matthews, a very high-profile player. There seemed to be some reports that there were mixed emotions on a return to play. So earlier this week, you said this was a crucial week. End of the week now, did they make it through that week and as everything's good, even with the shutdown in Tampa and Austin Matthews, a high-profile player coming down with corona?
I would say it was mostly successful at this point, and the thing that's holding me up from saying it's completely successful is the selection of the 2 hub cities. If they would have had that out by now, too, then I'd say they accomplished their goal just about, with the exception of just letting us know the updates on the players. One of the good updates that came out was that Tampa's facility opened yesterday. So Tampa's facility is back open, even with the other positive tests that happened last week. That's a good sign. It indicates that enough of their players, they had all their players who were remaining there tested, and obviously some positive results came out of that not a lot of players, or maybe no players, tested positive and were able to go back and continue training. That's a very good sign. The other parts of it that are good at this point is that it seems like there are players who are continuing to get more information about the cities, and if they can get what they kind of would like to see out of it, which is just this, that the agreement is in favor of both sides, and negotiations and discussions have been continuous and have not really hit any snags in terms of, like, you don't hear any, I haven't heard anything that indicates it's completely falling apart. There might be some little details that change the game a little bit. Like, I think Vancouver was a city that was heavily in the running, and then all of a sudden one day it's, well, there's a little snag in the details, and the next thing you know, they're out. And that's how quickly things are moving. But at least they have narrowed the list down and cut it in half from 10 to 5. That's at least a sign of progress on making the decision. You don't have much more to go, but you do have to figure it out sooner or later. And I kind of thought that by today, you'd need to have something out there to be fully confident that this is moving in the right direction. And it's not quite there, but I do still see the signs that they are moving forward with the plan to try to play. And the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning were able to open their facility back up, the fact that they're, to this point anyway, and we're heavily waiting on this factor, is to find out if there's any more players who tested positive and maybe what the number is. From a Flyer standpoint, things are looking really good from a Flyer standpoint because more and more players continue to report to Voorhees. It seems like every day there's a new player that we find out is on the ice. And one of the Flyers prospects, Igor Zamula, he's a defenseman who just signed his entry-level deal this year. He's training at the Flyers facility right now and detailed to Russian press very recently what the protocol is there, and they are testing Flyers players twice a week. The facility is being disinfected every 30 minutes. They're wearing masks off the ice at all times, and the players are eating only what the team chefs are cooking for them. They're not eating out at all, actually, and I don't know if this is team mandated or if it's just the players deciding this, but the players are not going out in public, and that's a big deal too. They are making a very smart decision here to put their focus on staying, basically going between home or wherever they're staying now that they've returned to the area and the facility, and that can cut down on the amount of exposure they have to the rest of the world, which is very much what bubble life and hub city life is going to be when the time comes. So those are details that show how the Flyers have created this very safe environment. As Chuck Fletcher said, it sounds very much like a safe environment when you look at all of those details. So that's definitely a positive, and depending on how many teams are following that very similar protocol, that would be a positive sign as well.
Kevin Durso, we'll leave you with this. As you also wrote for the website a couple of days ago, Oscar Lindblom returned to the ice for the Flyers. Number one, it had to be a pretty cool sight to see him out there skating around and, getting his blood going. And number two, I guess the question might be, because of everything getting pushed back so far, he's not close to actually competing, is he?
No, he's not close to actually competing. I'll start with the first part of what you asked, which is it's a great sight. And the fact that not only was it a great sight to see him out there and skating around and all that stuff, the video the Flyers posted was great, and that's really the only access we have to anything is to see what the team puts out for us. But the pictures, too, where you can just see the smile on his face, how happy he is to be out there, happy to be out with a couple of his teammates, too, that's great to see. he's not close to playing anytime soon. And one of the main reasons for it is because of the fact that he is still undergoing treatments. He's rounding them out. He's getting very close to being done. And as soon as he's done with the treatments, supposedly he's going to be able to get the clearance from doctors to be able to start training as if he were to make a comeback. He's not going to be part of this 2014 playoff at any point. So the rest of this season, whenever it would happen, if it is to happen, he's not going to be a part of that. But the question now comes into play, and I don't know if it's too soon to speculate it or not, but like, depending on when they were to start the next season, if it's December, if it's January, whatever it is, and how far back it goes, is it possible for him to make a return next season? I think it could be, depending on how far back you start and how much he gets in. You got to remember, he just got this diagnosis 6 months ago, basically, and he's just about back to finishing up the treatments, and he's still skating. He still looks strong, and if he gets clearance and has another, say, 6-7 months to be able to continue doing what he's been doing, he could be back into a good enough shape that he might be able to actually target a portion of the following season on his radar if you factor in that it might run until June of next year. If it's a year from now that you're talking about him possibly trying to make a return, it could very well be possible. I would be shocked if he didn't play within the next 2 seasons for sure, based on the way that he's just out there already.
Kevin Durso, at Kevin_Durso. Congratulations, man, on your wedding tomorrow. Good luck with that, and enjoy them. How do you even allow to get married during this thing? What do you have, like a limited amount of people?
I will tell you it like this. It's very much the way that, maybe a team would be handling this in the sports world is you have a certain number. We have a certain number of people. I would probably say about 20 to 25 is the grouping that we're mainly focused on. And we basically have an idea or have knowledge of how seriously they took the whole process and what they've done over the course of it to feel safe. We've gathered, very slowly but surely after all of the months of isolation, we've been able to, as things have been lifted slightly, to feel like you can go and hang out with people in small groups and feel comfortable again doing that. It's not massive public places by any stretch. And that allows us to actually feel comfortable around the people that we have in the wedding. So that's been the deal with that. We've definitely limited it. We're going to be, let's put it this way, everybody can, everybody in our circle of friends and family has a way to see this wedding virtually. We're going to put it out there. But
is this like a Zoom code? Can I get the Zoom code for this?
We're going to be on Facebook Live, actually. So
okay.
There will be a Facebook Live. Yeah, so we're just going to start sharing it. So it'll be out there for everybody to see. And
Kevin Durso is getting a lot of friend requests here in the next 10 minutes.
But I generally, because of the stories and things like that, I generally post public anyway, so people can generally see it even if they don't have me at it or anything like that. But yeah, so that's basically the deal with that, and we kind of have an idea of where everybody's been, but it's been trying to find a controlled thing. I mean, it's been nice actually because we've been able to get a month ago we didn't think we could get the bridal party involved, and we were able to, and we're able to actually go out to dinner and sit outside and have a nice dinner after the whole deal tomorrow. And that'll be great to have just something for the people who are closest to us. It's not what we envisioned completely. The original reception plan got pushed back to November, and we're not taking a really big honeymoon at this point. We're basically just doing a smaller version of it. So we'll be actually down in your neck of the woods, sort of, not quite Atlantic City, but we'll be in Sea Isle. So that'll be nice for a few days.
All right, man. What's the big song? Is there like a song that the first dance is? Do you know what's the selection, the score?
If I told you guys what the song is, you would have no clue what it is because it's kind of a deep cut off of an album. It is a country song. I will inform you of that right away. But it is a deep cut that not many people know of. It's not one of those common, one of those ones that tops the list of most used first dance songs.
All right, man. Well, enjoy, congrats, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Kevin Durso covers the Flyers, 97.3 ESPN.